They tried to escape death. Then they became a sea of skeletons. Then how their souls returned to their bodies by the command of Allah.
World history gives us occurrences that instantly negate all the logic, intellect, and mathematical calculations of normal human beings. We fear death. We run from one end of the world to the other to get away from it. Have you ever heard of a situation where thousands of people had to flee from their homes out of fear of death, but death pursued and overtook them in an open field in 10 what? Well, what happens next? We'll give you the chills. Picture, if you can, an arid expanse of miles and miles of white bones. The howling of the wind is the waiting of countless tormented spirits. But then, mysteriously, all these long-dead rotting bones started moving. The individuals who died all these centuries ago roamed back to life in the blink of an eye. This is the terrifying experience of Bani Israel, as is mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah of the Holy Qur'an. Allah displayed an unbelievable miracle of His power there. How thousands of persons left their homes out of fear of death, and Allah revived them after death. We shall tread that hot and dusty road of history and see an unbelievable miracle. The Israelites had a second chance, but perhaps not us. Subscribe now to ride with us on a journey that prepares for life after death, and a share might just be your salvation. The shadow of a curse in the city of happiness. Thousands of years ago, during the age of the children of Israel, there existed a wealthy city, teeming with happiness and overflowing with abundance. The citizens were confident that their days of happiness were endless. They were amply provided with food in their homes, strength in their bodies, and immense happiness within their hearts. They were so absorbed in their stable life that they forgot their control over life was not in their hands, but rather controlled by God above. But suddenly, one day, the clouds amassed menacingly over the fate of the city, as if Allah was punishing the city for some transgression, or perhaps testing its inhabitants. A calamitous plague broke out in the city. According to historians, it was the plague, or an equally lethal communicable disease. It was airborne. It moved from house to house. The person who was strong and hale enough to walk about the marketplace the day before was found lifeless on the floor of his home this morning. Nobody was spared from the wrath of this invisible demon, whether babies in their mothers' laps, or young men, or elderly fathers. Panic set in throughout the city. A fear of death gripped the minds of everyone. What if I look at him? What if he looks at me? Each passing second was lived with this fear in mind. Is it my turn now? No one could have expected death could be this frightening. 2. Humanity's rebellion against destiny in such a critical stage. The beliefs of those people were put to the test. However, oh no, Satan injected a misleading hope within those people's hearts. They started thinking, well, what if we move away from this city of death? If we move to a place where the air is clean, then maybe we can live. Instead of depending upon fate or destiny, they began to depend upon their intellect. They believed that death is not God's wish, but rather a concern in this place. Thus, when they left this place, death would not be able to get hold of them. The great exodus has just begun. Not just one or two, but thousands of people ready to leave the city, leaving their homes, their property, and their dear ones behind. Different references of the Quran place this number at 10,000, some others at 30,000, or even 70,000. Just think of it. The whole city seemed to be emptying like this. Everyone seemed to be running. Their men, women, and children included. There was just one thought in their eyes: to survive at all costs. They walked and crossed the boundaries of the city. They moved through forests and mountains and finally reached a broad river and a huge plain. It was a valley where there were no traces of human existence. This area had pure air untouched by any kind of epidemic. In their world, they took a breath of relief. They hugged one another. We succeeded. We outwitted death. No one can ever harm us again. And arrogance crept in. They were convinced that God's plan was no match for their cleverness. They set up their tents, rested, and even dared to dream of a fresh new life. They did not yet understand that this valley was actually their destination, not for living, but for a great finale. 3. The divine decree and the silence of eternity. Allah, the Lord of the worlds, had been witnessing all this. Allah had seen how his servants were relying on their own intelligence and not on Allah. They had been trying to avoid death itself, yet they were not aware of the fact that their deaths were pursuing them like a shadow. Allah had a lesson to teach this whole world until the day of judgment. They were to learn how there will be no corner of this universe to escape from the dominance of Allah. They were so confident about sleeping, so caught up in another conversation, but no lightning flashed from the sky. Neither did the earth divide them in two. Allah only used his authority to send the two angels with only one command. You all die. One word. And then the shouting of thousands was silenced forever. There was no time, really, for anyone to take a drink of water or glance at their next. They were wherever it is they were, doing whatever it is they were doing. Their spirits left their body. In an instant, the valley that had been teeming with people a short while ago turned into a massive cemetery. However, it was anything but a cemetery because there was no one left to bury the dead. Thousands of dead bodies were strewn across the open sky. Flies started buzzing around, while the birds flew away out of fear. The entire place was shrouded with silence. It wasn't bearable. 4. Cried to dust. Days turned into nights, nights into months, and months into years. According to the immutable laws of nature, the corpses started decaying. The very features that they were so proud of started disintegrating. A stench awful enough to be smelled from miles away started spreading. Not one single person would venture to step onto that path. The air reeked. In the passage of time, the flesh decomposed and disappeared. Only thousands of white bones were left. The sun, the rains, and the storms acted on the bones. Dust settled on them. Persons who at one time thought of themselves as being the wisest had become heaps of unnamed bones. Wild animals came and scattered the bones everywhere. Nothing was left of human life. Only a tragic history was left behind. People passing through would look at the valley from a distance and wonder, are these the people who cheated death? This is their fate today. Centuries went by in this manner. The bones had nearly decomposed. They turned into dust, assimilating with the earth. Nobody would recall them either. But Allah, He never forgets, who has the ability to grasp the majesty of His designs. 5. The coming of the Prophet, and the proof of the power of Allah. After so many years, a much-loved Prophet of Allah, Prophet Ezekiel, peace be upon him, Prophet Samuel, or another prophet, according to some sources, happened to pass by that route. When he saw the valley, he stood by in awe. There were only bones, as far as the sight could reach. Skulls of human beings, human arm bones, human rib bones. Every single one of them had been mixed together along with the dust. A deep sense of wonder emerged in the heart of the Prophet. He exclaimed, Subhanallah, how shall Allah revive this vast number of people who have now reduced to dust and mixed with the earth? This was not a doubt, but a type of wonder and amazement at the boundless powers of Allah. Just like Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, he wanted to know the mechanism of resurrecting the dead birds. Prophet Ezekiel, peace be upon him, fixed his eyes on the destroyed city and prayed to Allah. He was full of mercy for these unfortunate people. Then Allah, Lord of the worlds, understood the thoughts in his prophet's heart. Revelation descended. Allah spoke, saying, "O my prophet, do you want me to show you how I bring them back to life? Do you want me to show you how I give life to the dead?" The prophet submitted to this request humbly. Then Allah commanded, "Proclaim to these bones. Say to these old bones, to these skeletons, Allah commands thee to assemble." 6. The dance of bones, and the reconstruction of life. The prophet Ezekiel, peace be upon him, listened to God's command and cried out in a loud voice in that huge Barin valley. His voice reached all the particles of dust carried by the wind. And then began this miraculous phenomenon, an experience nobody else in the world's history had ever had. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and rumble. The sound of clattering filled the air as the entire ground began to shake with this clattering phenomena. The prophet noticed how, for thousands of years, the separate bones were moving towards one another as if an unseen magnet were drawing them to one another. The leg bone coupled exactly with the leg bone. The finger bone flew up and wound itself around the wrist. Not a single bone ended up with the wrong person's skeleton. What a marvelous accomplishment of engineering. Thousands of skeletons stood up before his gaze, an immense army of bones, with no air in them and no flesh. However, God's power was not finished yet. Now command that flesh veins and skin cover these bones. Allah commanded the Prophet once again. With the command from the Prophet, the inexplicable happened. Red muscles appeared on the bones. Vein, artery, and nerve tissues expanded like an edged web. A thin skin layer covered all the contents inside. What had just been a mound of earth mere moments earlier had become thousands of lifeless corpses. They just lay there, as if in a deep sleep. The corpses had been created, but they did not live. 7. The return of the souls and the announcement of Tawhid. Then Allah, the Lord of the worlds, issued the final decree. Allah told the Prophet, "O Prophet, call the souls. Say to the souls, O holy souls, enter into your bodies by the command of Allah." The Prophet pointed to the sky and made those sublime statements. Thereupon, a radiant glow started to descend from the heavens. Thousands of souls were descending from the world of spirits in the speed of a storm. First, there was the twitch of the finger. Next, the ribs started moving in and out. The pulse quickened. Then, after all the years, there is the breath in the lungs. The eyelids began to flicker. And thousands of people opened their eyes at the same time. They sat up as if they had been sleeping for an awful long time. They had no fear, but rather a kind of amazement. They were looking at their hands and feet, and then at each other's faces. They could not believe their eyes when they saw the light of the world. At once, without any prior preparation, this same sentence issued forth from every person's lips. Subhanakallah, ilaha, illa, anta, O Allah, you are pure. There is no God but you. The whole valley trembled with the sound of their shouting cries. The proclamation of the oneness of Allah from the voices of thousands created an otherworldly situation. On seeing the situation, Prophet Ezekiel, peace be upon him, bowed in gratitude to Allah. He got ample witness to the fact. Verily, Allah is omnipotent over all. 8. Return of the immortal peoples and lessons drawn. Those brought back to life headed to their old city. Can you imagine? The city, which had been empty, had thousands of people going to the city. Their children, who had grown old, were unable to recognize the appearance of their fathers. Such was the situation. However, in Tafsir ibn Kathir, it is narrated that even when these people were alive, there was a hint of death on them. They had slightly lighter faces and the smell of the grave on their clothes. This is narrated from Abdullah Ibay, knowing that those were the individuals whom Allah had killed and then resurrected. They lived their lives as usual until their natural death at the end of their ordained time. Dear yours, Allah is talking about an incident from thousands of years ago in the Qur'an. Why? To tell a story, so it is a waste of time. Of course not. There are actually 2 giant lessons in this for us. 1. Faith and destiny. We may do our level best. Still, it is impossible for us to avoid death. Even if you have taken shelter in an iron safe, death would still be able to reach you. Again, if Allah wants, He could protect you, even if you were in the midst of a blazing fire. Hence, it is not an act of a believer if he flees for fear of any epidemic or peril. 2. Verification of the life to come. Today's science may raise the following question. How could people be resuscitated from rotting bones? The case of the children of Israel provides the visual explanation for this question. It would be even simpler for the one who created us the first time out of nothing to create us the second time from rotting bones. Before finishing off this video, put your hand on your left chest and think about this for a second. Won't we, one day, become a heap of bones inside the ground? Won't we be summoned on that day? Of course, we will. But whether we will rise with a smile on our face or with shame, it is up to us to decide at this moment. Those people from the children of Israel were given a second chance. But you and I may not have a second chance. Once our eyes close, there will not be a way back. May Allah give us all proper understanding, and may we die with faith. If you enjoyed the video, please share the video, so others can learn from it too. To learn more interesting and educational Islamic true stories, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell till next time. Inshallah. See you all in the next video.